What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Grid Life Drivers Meeting, episode number 7. I'm Kyle Heyer from Grid Life. A little bit of a late show tonight. I've got some other stuff going on right before this, but super glad to have two great guests on tonight. Two drivers which are in championship hunts. One of them, as of very recently, just a couple events ago, picking up his first win of the season, first weekend win of the season. A name that everyone's familiar with in the paddock from years past. Hosts a whole bunch of race cars, has a stacker that has probably half the paddock in it. That is Andy Smedegard, the AS in ASM. Andy, thanks for being here with me tonight. We've had to punt this a couple of weeks, but we're super stoked to have you here. We've got Evan McLaren joining us a little bit later. But first of all, welcome to the Drivers Meeting. Stoked to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, again, I think for a lot of drivers, the name goes without really a whole lot of introduction. You've been around for quite some time. Even, I think, to some extent, pre-Kyle at Grid Life. So I want to start with where you came from, because everyone knows you as this hyper-talented mechanic and sort of car owner in some sense in the paddock, and a great driver to boot. But where did the Andy Smedegard working in racing or having a hand on a wrench start?
Sure. I won't go back to the very beginning of how I got into cars and stuff. I'll kind of fast forward a bit. But basically, I started competing and doing events, and I had met a lot of people. They started wanting stuff done to their car. They kind of saw the success I was having with my car, and they just started asking me, hey, can you just do this to my car? And I started doing that on the side, and it was a side hustle for a good 3 years, doing my normal day job, and then after get home at 5, work till 10, 11 o'clock in the garage doing just side stuff. And that transitioned for about 2 years, where I started kind of doing both. I actually went down to, part-time at my normal job, and then part-time, back at home. And then eventually, I think this was about 6 or 7 years ago, decided to just, take the plunge and do shop stuff full-time.
Yeah, so, I think my first introduction to you, or back, it was running Time Attack. And so I think there was an Evo around that was super competitive in street mod. So again, this is a little bit pre-Kyle. So what was your introduction into the Grid Life world, and how did you sort of get a simple?
Well, I was actually at the very first Grid Life. It was something that a buddy of mine, we were doing. We did NASA events and stuff, and we came across this event that popped up on Facebook. It was a Time Attack at Gingerman. Sounded cool. It's a one-day event. Entry fees were very cheap back then. I think it was $150.
We all wish.
And I had my I had my Evo at the time, and I'm like, hey, let's go check this out. So we went out. It was 3 or 4 buddies. We went out there and did the very first Grid Life event. They had a small little music festival. There was probably maybe 50 people at the music festival, but I mean, it was really cool. It was something I never seen at the time. And from there, it kind of just, I think we've been going back every single year since. And started with the Evo doing Time Attack. And when they started doing the GLTC stuff, I knew I wanted to get into wheel-to-wheel at one point. And it was just kind of perfect timing. It kind of, I was kind of getting tired of Time Attack a bit. And jumped into GLTC and been doing a lot of wheel-to-wheel since. Yeah,
I think my first introduction to you in GLTC probably was 2020, I want to say, your S2000 was yellow at the time.
Yep. It was kind of a little beater S2000.
Yeah, so tell me about the life of that car. Where did that thing start? Because I'm sure it probably ended up being one of the other cars at some point, or maybe not, but I want to know the history of that car.
Yeah, so the first GLTC car, or the first S2000 I had that I did GLTC with, is what we call Trainer 1, and it was a car I built mostly as a trainer. It was one I just wanted to have a car I could just turn laps in, didn't have to, again, coming from the Time Attack where it's braking every 2 laps. I wanted a car that I could just run 15, 20 minutes, just keep going, work on my driving, and drive it all the time. And yeah, that's what Trainer 1 is. And it still is today. I actually, the car is owned by Ronnie at RS Motors. He still runs the car. It's now, I think, blue, but that is the same car.
Gotcha. Okay, I didn't know that it was Ronnie's car. So that's interesting that it's changes over the year. So the S2000 formula. Let's talk a little bit about that, because your debut in GLTC already was very impressive. You're a great driver in your own right. I don't think people give you enough credit for that, given that you're an amazing wrench. But there was you sort of met up with Tom O'Gorman. Tom was also sort of doing his own thing in 2020 with his own S2000. And when you guys sort of joined forces the next year, there was a whole bunch of people that sort of came to you and said, hey, I want this same formula. Is that how this S2000 fleet started out?
Yeah, kind of. I think it happened maybe the year before, me and Tom kind of hooked up a bit. And it was, yeah, I built an S2 that was doing pretty successful. And it's always easy to just replicate the same car. We kind of created a cookie cutter recipe for an S2000. So Zach Lavoie, he wanted one, so we built him an S2000. We kind of already had Ronnie had T1 or Trainer 1, and then I built another one called the Trainer 2. And I think shortly after that, I kind of saw Tom. He was struggling a bit. He had an S2000. He was struggling with kind of keeping that car together and on track. And he's a great driver. He started offering driver coaching. I thought that was a great fit for kind of the few customers I had. They all wanted driver coaching, but then they also wanted, me to help maintain the car. So I thought it was a perfect fit to bring Tom in. Tom, can you help me with the driver coaching? I got drivers that really want to get better. I need to, keep the cars going, and let's kind of team up a bit. And I can help with your S2000 at the same time. I'll help build, maintain your S2000 if you can just help my drivers get faster. And it's kind of a win-win scenario.
And it really was a win-win for a while. Wins in all areas, and
yeah,
we saw that formula get pretty popular, right? As the GLTC formula itself got pretty popular, and field sizes were growing, and the Honda K24 engine that seems to be everywhere. So in your shop and your building process, you've got a lot of tools at your disposal, and we'll get to what you're doing right now a little later. But the K24 swap that you're putting into everything. We're kind of on the bleeding edge of that, it seemed like, in GLTC. I know winning formula was there too, but what makes that such a good swap? And as far as your development with it, was there tips and tricks you sort of figured out about it along the way that made it easy?
Yeah, so that it is a good swap, and it definitely didn't come easy. It's a nice cheap engine, makes good broad torque. For the GLTC rule set, it's all power to weight, so you're really, and back then we really didn't have all the flat power modifiers we do now, right? So you could make a really peaky 200 horsepower, or you could make 200 horsepower throughout the whole power band. So the F series that came in the S2000 was a very peaky 200 horsepower. You didn't get that till the very, very end. The K series had a much more, broad power. So that was a big advantage to drop in the K24 and get the extra torque, the bigger power band, and then still only be the same peak total, horsepower. So that was a good engine to go with. The downside of that engine is it's such a harmonic heavy, vibrating. It just cracks all parts attached to it, breaks all sensors. It's a long stroke inline 4-cylinder, so very harmonic heavy engine. And that was kind of the struggle, and I mean, it still is today. I mean, you see people all the time struggling with that, and you can do things to mitigate those issues, but they're still there. And if you can figure out those tricks and stuff to keep everything together, it can definitely be still a strong engine. I mean, that's still what's, I think, who's winning today still in the series, right? He's K24. Yep. He's figured it out.
Well, I think along the way also with the S2000 as selected chassis, was that sort of a conscious decision, or was it just that everyone wanted the car that you had?
I picked S2000 a long time ago because I fell in love with that chassis. Just a nice balanced, chassis, very rewarding to drive at the limit. And I think everyone kind of wants what whoever's winning has, right? Yeah. Usually, or whoever sees, this car winning a lot, like let's just do that. He's got a proven recipe. So I think that's just kind of what happened. And again, it's easier to replicate the same thing. I can rebuild that same car over and over and over. And then I can actually start to spread out all the development costs and all that stuff. That was the other big advantage when we start having 4 or 5 of the exact same car. We have 4 or 5 cars at this track at the same time that we get to try different things on. So instead of what would take maybe one person a full season to figure out, we can figure out in one event. So that's the other big advantage to all running the same car.
Yeah, and I think you figured out some other things and weaknesses of the car that you sort of engineered solutions. And my understanding is you've got sort of off-the-shelf products that sort of solve this issue also, or issues plural.
Yeah. There's just like any car, there's always something, and we found limitations with certain things. Again, running 5 cars, we get to see what it is the weak link and address that. So from a business standpoint, that just made sense. Like, we're having to figure this out and make stuff or find a solution for our cars. Let's just offer a solution for all S2000s and start trying to recoup some of these costs. Racing is expensive already, so if we can do things to help all the costs and recoup some of that back, I mean, that's a win-win too.
So what were some of those weaknesses with the S2000? And there's some people in the chat that go, they also look good, which is a big benefit too. But again, I think, from my perspective, the older Hondas probably everything's a little bit smaller, and curbs and things can be kind of rough on them. But what weaknesses did you sort of have to work out?
Well, I mean, we'll start with some of the weaknesses, as in there's, these cars were only meant to be, I shouldn't say that. They were meant to be only 200 horsepower cars, and they still are. But when we start stringing them out, we're adding, spherical bushings on everything, or spherical bearings. We're increasing grip limits, and then we're banging them wheel to wheel, bouncing off curbs. I mean, we started noticing the spindles failing. I mean, the S2000 was built only to be as strong as it needed to be to hold up. That's usually how you make the most efficient cars. You make it strong enough just to be as strong as it needs to be. You don't overbuild it into this big heavy truck and then have a 4,000-pound car at the end, unless you're a Corvette.
Nice.
But yeah, so we started finding issues with the spindles. I think that was probably one of the bigger things. But then the other thing with the S2000, it's an old car. It's 20 some years old. So finding parts now has been an issue, and that wasn't a common car that you would they didn't use any of these other parts on other Hondas. The Honda S2000 was built, and all these parts were only S2000 parts. It wasn't like it was from a Honda Accord or Civic or CR-V, which is kind of what started the whole K-swap thing too. The F-Series engines were expensive. Let's find something that's a little bit more sustainable and cheaper, and we can keep tracking. And that's where we started doing the K-swaps. So we've tried to find things that we can just keep these cars on track for longer and keep it cost effective.
So a couple seasons worth of running a whole fleet of S2000s. You had some other customers that were running some different cars as well, some BMWs here. Were there learnings from building those other cars that you took back to the sort of the main fleet, or is everything too different and unique to sort of learn across chassis like that?
Yeah, everything is a bit unique. So I mean, you can take some things and apply it to others, but I don't know. It always just depends. There's just too many variables with everything. But I enjoy learning new chassis. I like the, trying to find the tricks and stuff to what works, what doesn't. So yeah, I mean, I kind of welcome all chassis, but again, when you're working with the same chassis over and over, you just get more data points. Gotcha.
So now we'll kind of transition a little bit ahead. So this year at Lime Rock Park, you sort of right up in the mix, battling with now the championship leader, Eric Hill, 4 race wins, battling Paul Darling up there, got a couple of wins and walked away with the trophy there. That was sort of a significant moment in GLTC history because I think, as Dewey pointed out, it was the first time that a Subaru engine had won a weekend. And that's significant because we've been talking about K24s and all this stuff, but you're learning a new chassis right now, and I think sort of doing the same thing you did with the S2000 where you're figuring it out and then I imagine offering the same sort of thing to the next generation. So that's the FRS BRZ GT86 chassis with 0.4 liter FA24. How'd that come about? Because I'm a big fan. I'm a subscriber to that car. So I'm very interested in what your learnings have been from that.
Yeah. So we knew the S2000 wasn't going to last forever, right? They're not making them. Parts are kind of failing and breaking, and those cars are kind of turning into collector cars now. So they're not, they're becoming less and less of a track car. So we wanted to always look for the next chassis. And the BRZ FRS, I think is kind of is at least in this price point. Those cars are so cheap. You can get them all day long, running still under 10,000, blown up probably 3,000-4,000. So we wanted to kind of start focusing on that chassis. And actually this started probably about 2 years ago. The BRZ that I'm running in now used to be K-swapped. I had a DCT in it. Like, I went through some iterations with the car, and I would kind of say they weren't very successful. I mean, I've ran that car a couple times and never did that great. And after a while, we just kind of kept having little issues here and there, and I'm fighting things, and I'm like, we got to start over a little bit. Let's take 3 steps back or something, and let's figure out a new formula. And I knew the second gen engines, or the second gen BRZs, had the new engine, the FA24, and they were making 200 some horsepower, which is what a K series will do. So I decided to go that route. Let's just go real simple. Let's get the engine in there. I like the idea of keeping something relatable to other people. Not many people want to do a full K24 swap or a DCT or all this other stuff. They want to do something that's cost effective. And that's what I wanted to create, something that most people could afford and do. And then I wanted to showcase and prove that it has the potential.
How much work are you doing on the engine itself? Is it just drop in straight in with an oil pan, or?
Nope.
Zero.
Mine is literally a dropout FA24. I think it had 30,000 miles on it. I haven't even cleaned out the RTV. I threw it in the car and have been running it since.
So, again, as someone who's been following this chassis from, the second generation launch and all this about, viability of these, have you had a chance to poke around inside to kind of see what makes them tick and what weaknesses they might have?
I have a bit. I honestly haven't seen too many weaknesses. They are complicated engines. We've had our hands inside a lot of the FA20s. We actually started doing, before the full long block FA24 swap, we did what we call a hybrid. Took the FA20 heads and bolted it to the FA24 short block, which was a bit more involving. You had to port out the combustion chambers on the heads. You had to modify the rear crank trigger, modify the engine mounts. There's some other things. And it kind of worked, but it was very labor intensive. I guess it wasn't that expensive, but most people would not want to do it. And that's what we did at first, and it worked, but I didn't think it was a easy solution for most people. And then the big change was when like Link ECU came out with their plug-in ECU. That allows people to change cam triggers, crank triggers, sensors, whatever. So now we can take this second gen engine, just drop it in, use their plug-in ECU, change a few settings, and it starts right up. Don't have to open up the long block at all, which makes it easy, because these engines are complicated and most people, I think, will struggle. If you're not a mechanic by day, you're going to struggle a bit. Not that you can't do it. I mean, someone that's very resourceful could probably figure it out, but I like keeping it easy and something that anyone could do real easy.
Just a question that was posed in the chat here. Is Trainer 3 coming back, and how do you like the Link or X ECU for K?
I mean, I like the Link ECUs for just about everything. We've been using them a lot more in a lot of our cars. And yeah, it gives, it does everything we need it to do. There's a lot of new things with like a lot of the CAN bus stuff nowadays. That's always been kind of like closed off by most ECUs. Link leaves that open, which allows for all kinds of different things. Trainer 3 though, we'll bring it back out for sure. It's not, that car it's actually still fully running. It's Dakota almost brought it to Autobahn this last weekend, but decided he didn't want the added pressure of bringing a a GLTC championship car back and then having to maybe not prove how fast it is.
Yeah, I think I could see there's definitely pressure. Plus, Benny's pretty cool. I heard the nickname for his new EK Honda Civic, and that thing's pretty unique. I mean, I was actually listening to the Tom talk on the Lizard Brains podcast tonight about how it was sort of stealing the show when it was parked amongst all the other cars with liveries, and everyone was sort of focused on that car. What is it about that car that makes it so interesting? Is it just the old Honda tax that are?
Well, it might have been the for sale sign in it. People see it, for sale, race car, and it's honestly priced pretty well. Shameless plug, $25,000, perfectly set up EK Civic. Anyone wants it, let me know. But yeah, I don't know. It's a very relatable little chassis. And I think the GRIDLIFE's main audience is 30, 40-year-old men, right? That was the car we all want. Yeah, that was the car that most of us wanted when we were in high school.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
It's been fun to watch. That thing kind of rips too. So pretty cool to watch.
It's a good car.
But so this GT80 6.2 that you had a really successful weekend at Lime Rock, won that, and then this past weekend at Autobahn Country Club, just stealing the show. The first couple of races with Eric Catil, and then winning the third race of the weekend. What's that car like to drive, and compare that to the S2000 as far as driving dynamics and things of the sort? Because at the surface level, that car looks really simple, and when you're up against Catil's car has got so much time and energy. But the Corvettes have so much time and money and energy into that. That car looks simple, but Is it as it seems? Because I sat in it, it looks beautiful inside, but what's really going on and how does it drive?
It really is simple. And I think if you ask anyone, I've got no secrets with that car. Open the hood, whatever you want to see. I mean, there's no tricks about it. I think it's just, I want to say it's just really well built and put together and tuned well. It's fairly easy to drive, especially coming from S2000s. S2000s are very knife edgy. You know, you've got to be a really good driver to get everything you can out of an S2. This car, I mean, I'd like to think I could take any of the top 5 guys in GLTC, throw them in this car, and they would be top 5 still, right? You do that with certain cars, like Catil's car. I don't think I could get in that car and be a top 5 car, not without, you know, several events to kind of re-practice and figure that car out. But the BRZ is kind of easy to drive. You know, being a struck car too, it's just kind of, the best way I can relate it, it drives kind of like a BMW, where it's kind of a little numb at the very limit, like it's very forgiving. You can just kind of throw it in and it will maybe just give you a little bit of understeer. So I don't know. You can drive it anytime you want.
I'd love to. I'm going to take you up on that if you keep offering it to me, Andy.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think it's also interesting in the current state of GLTC, again, as we approach sort of the tail end of the season. And, you know, I look at the season standings as a rough estimate of how things are doing parity-wise. Of course, you look at the big tracks and see some big gaps and things to close. But this year, we've had more winners and more unique cars than we've ever seen. With a relatively simple build like yours doing really well, does it say anything about where we are with this? I mean, everyone always wants rule changes, but how is it from your perspective right now with this car up front?
I think it's pretty good. I do feel the rules have gotten much better over the years. You know, adding all the flat power, like I was saying before the flat power stuff, it was actually kind of interesting because no one was exploiting the rules to the full advantage, and it kind of slowly got that way. And that's usually what, you know, that's why rules are created, is someone exploits something and then we have to fix it and stuff. So things have gotten pretty good. Not that they're perfect. I mean, I think they'll get better. But yeah, it's really cool to see the diversity of all the different cars that are competing and can compete. And I think that's really that's what makes GLTC pretty special.
Certainly, it's been fun to watch, and of course, I've got Evan McLaren hanging out here, waiting for us to chat with him as well. But anyway, I want to kind of wrap things up with a couple more things here. Also, your background's got some drifting in it, and I know that I saw some testing videos the other day. Do you have a new shop? Is this all new, or is this news yet?
I mean, it can be news. No secrets there. Yeah, we moved. When did we move? I think we moved last October. Actually, yeah, right after pit last year. I bought a new building, and it happens to be right in front of our circle track, our local circle track, which we use quite often for just testing, autocross, drifting, whatever. But yeah, we moved in there, and that's kind of what has really kept me very busy in the last year, is getting the whole new shop stuff set up. But yeah, hopefully we'll start adding some, you know, doing some of our own little drift events and fun stuff at our shop.
Yeah, and the drifting as well. I've seen you drift. I've drifted out there with you on track with Pete, and I haven't drifted myself. I was riding with Pete. But that seems like go ahead.
Is that when we hit each other?
Yes, it is. I wasn't going to say that, but if you want to out you and Pete for that, no, it was good. But you know, that seems like a kind of a fun way to sort of let out some energy.
Oh,
is that sort of like, is the racing too serious and drifting's like the fun thing to kind of release the stress?
Kinda. The drifting it's weird, especially when it's just kind of like for fun, like if you're not doing a real competition. If you're just doing for fun drifting with the buddies, you know, doing some tandems, like it's so weird how pure fun it is. You don't have the stress and the intensity of like a GLTC race, which is kind of fun in its own way. But drifting is just like, it's just pure fun, 100% pure fun.
Awesome. Two questions about the GT86.2. Spring rates, asks Mark Andres. Are those? Will you give those out?
Sure. Yeah.
Look at you
so,
go.
Yeah. Spring rates. About 500 pounds square. I will tell people, don't just copy what someone else does, because it's always way more complicated than that. You know, there's a lot of other things that go into it. Sway bars, roll center. Like, there's just too much. But if anyone is interested, I mean, in more about suspension on them, I'm happy to help kind of consult a bit with it. So, but yeah, 500 pound spring rates, front and rear.
Okay, gotcha. So there's a spring race for Mark. And then Omaris, who's all the way from Indonesia, is asking about the exhaust setup.
It is a unequal length header to basically 3-inch back into like a Borla muffler. That I think it's the same exhaust I had when I had the K series. So 3-inch back, but then yeah, just a unequal length header, some cheap one too.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I've been asking this question to everybody this year to kind of finish things out. Again, we get lots of good feedback here and there, and lots of praise about certain things, and lots of feedback, negative or positive. But I want to give you an opportunity to sort of tell us, change one thing about Grid Life tomorrow. What would it be?
Oh my God! You should have let me prepare for this one.
No, that's the thing. It's got to be off the cuff.
One thing about Grid Life. Oh my God. Just one. Hold on. I made some notes.
Oh boy.
Oh shoot.
I like that it takes a second.
So the one thing I would like to see
Yep.
is a driver committee to help with some of the rules and scrutineering stuff. I would like to see that. I feel some of the Grid Life staff, it appears they're a bit overloaded at the event. They've got so much going on. And I always feel bad kind of like trying to ask them for stuff or complain about stuff. And I don't want to complain. I'm trying to
Sure.
I want to help. But I would like to see a committee of well-respected drivers, some of the guys, the OG guys that have been doing this for a long time, kind of help with some of that.
I think that's a great suggestion. I love that.
Yeah.
And these are
one more.
Oh, go ahead.
I got one more too.
Sure.
3 race weekends. Sunday race be a fun race. 4 race weekends.
Yep.
3 are towards points. Sunday's race is for fun. Doesn't matter. People that want to stay and do it, great. Car swap, whatever you want. It's just a pure fun race.
I like that idea too. We used to do that back in the day. We had a fun Sunday race.
That was so fun.
Yeah, and I don't remember when drivers would change cars out. That was super.
Because now it's like Saturday night hits. It's like, well, we can't party too hard because we have real races tomorrow.
Right, it's a school night.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So it'd be fun to just bring back Saturday nights, be fun. You could have the awards ceremony Saturday, and then Sunday is just for fun race, and we all screw around.
Yeah, I love that. I'll bring that back to the table. I know that next year there's lots of discussion around Sundays and Fridays and how all that works together. So super great. Andy, thanks so much for your time, and I appreciate it. I had to push you back a week, but thanks so much for being patient, and I wish I could chat with you for forever, but I've got Evan waiting. So, hey, thanks so much, and we'll see you soon.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Smedegard. Drop him back in the waiting room. We've got Evan McLaren up next, and really excited about having Evan on. I got to also pull up my points in the background as well, because, boy, we have got a fight going on in the point standings here. I would like to also show, I have to remember. Okay, so, by the way, not familiar with how the points and results thing work. Go to Motorsport and Event Results, open this in a tab. You have the Autobahn stuff already here. Autobahn, you can see all the results. Not present this weekend, but if I want to go to Mario, there is all of his. That's the event results. We're going to merge that at some point with point standings, but now you click Track Battle, Points, Club TR. So as it stands, Evan McLaren, 4 with 81 points. Mario Moroni takes the lead, 87 coming out of Autobahn. Let's bring in Evan McLaren and have a little chat with our 4th place driver in Falken Club TR, because it has been a fun year so far. Evan McLaren joins me now. Evan, welcome to the Grid Life Drivers meeting, and thanks again, just like Andy, for being patient and hanging tough here while I kicked you guys back a week, because it's been real crazy over here. But thanks for joining.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, man.
Well, we were just taking a look at the point standings, and man, Falken Club TR has been really wild. I want to talk about that fight and the championship run here, but let's first start with Evan McLaren's background, and we'll know where you came from. How'd you end up in this spot, and where'd you start your driving career?
Oh man, it really hasn't been that long of a history for me. I kind of started doing HPDE in, what was it, 2020. Got my first taste of Grid Life in 2021, like during COVID. I drove the Integra out to the Midwest Fest in, was it end of 2020, when the rainy,
Yeah.
no concert COVID
Yep.
event.
Yeah, that
and
was it.
met some friends out there, got my first taste of seeing a GLTC race in person. Despite the weather, I had like the best time, and then I've been hooked ever since. Then I did a couple years of DE with GRIDLIFE, and then like some more local stuff, and then hopped into Time Attack at the beginning of 2022. Yeah. So yeah, it's just been a constant push ever since. I've just been, head first into not only just driving on track, but then in, competition and trying to develop myself as a driver and build the car. It's been kind of crazy to see how things have changed, kind of a short period of time for me.
Yeah, I'm looking at the wall of trophies behind you already, and we're going to get to your successes in Falken Club TR. But let's start also with the car that you're running, and the sort of, I feel like I might have been on a podcast a little while ago. Maybe it was one where you were talking about how, was it true that you didn't really select this car for this class? You just sort of had this car and made it and shoehorned it in and worked on it from there? Or how did you end up with that Integra?
Oh yeah, I've been in the Hondas for, I don't know, as long as I can remember. I've had this specific car probably close to 10 years now, maybe 9 or 8, but regardless, I had an Integra previous to the one I had. I crashed it just being a dumbass on the street, and basically found another shell a few weeks later and took everything from that car and transferred it into this car, and that was long before Club TR was even a thought in Jabei's mind. So I just pretty much lucked into the the car fitting into the rules. It was already K24 swapped before the class inception, so I didn't really have like a ton to do to just make it fit the class. It didn't have, it was just like my street car slash HPDE starter car, and I've just been in it ever since. And it's kind of evolved from being just a basic K swap car, and now it's full sphericals and aero and everything I can possibly do to push the limits of the rules. So yeah, it was all just by chance and by luck.
Club TR is one of GRIDLIFE's most popular categories, probably the most popular category by driver entry. Every year, it seems like it gets stronger and stronger and stronger. Competition in this class, I don't know what it is about it, but it just makes people go crazy. The front 5 cars right now are all within 7 points, and you're one of those drivers. You're 4th right now, with the top 4 drivers all each having 1 win this year. So what do you think makes this class so competitive, and why do you think we see entries that are so sizable with cars that are so similar, with drivers that are just willing to take their, maybe it was a light track day build, but they're just like full commit now, pulling out interior wherever they can? What makes people want to win this thing so bad?
Oh man, I don't know. I think the class strikes like a perfect balance between that, like, attainability factor of having a car that you can just take the DEs and then build, and there's enough freedom in the rules to make it kind of a builder's class, but also it is like very much so a driver's class at the same time. I mean, like Sunday Cup, there's not a whole lot of building you can do, and the competition's super tight because everybody's hundreds away from each other. And then Club TR has kind of gotten that same way, where we're just so tight, yet there's a lot of variety between the cars at the same time. But yeah, it's just like, I don't know, it somehow just became the car that I wanted to build. And as soon as I heard about the class, I was like, this is it, like this is perfect. It's not like like a street mod or a track mod that are so kind of like unattainable for a person like me, or for the car to be competitive would take a ton of money and development and everything, whereas like this class is it's just attainable, and it's still got that cool factor. And people can be driving their GRE6 on the street and see guys ripping it around on track with a wing and splitter and be like, that's awesome, like I can get into that, and look toward as something to look forward to in the future and develop towards. So it's just it's a good catch-all. The rules are wide open enough to where it allows a lot of different cars and a lot of different varieties. So I mean, it's just, I don't know how Adam came up with the idea, but I'd say he's a genius for it, because it's just like, in my opinion, it's just the perfect class.
It seems like, the couple of the cars that are up in the front, including your, this is a topic we talked about with Andy a while ago. It's like there's like this classic Honda thing, these 90s Hondas that seem to be just, people are fascinated by them. And I didn't grow up in the era of old Hondas, so I think they're cool, but like I don't latch onto them the same way that majority of the Grid Life audience does. What makes like the 90s Acuras and Hondas so special to you? I mean, obviously you've got one. Was it special, or was it just the thing that you had?
It's like, I don't know. I think before I got my first Honda, I was kind of like in the same boat of some people were just like, oh, they're slow and they're front wheel drive and they're not cool. And then I had like a really unreliable daily driver before I got my first Honda, and I think after owning just like a basic Civic and feeling how like differently it drove than the car I had previously, and how nimble it felt on the street, and then also just how like dead reliable it was for so long, that's kind of what got me hooked on the brand. And then after having that car for having Hondas like multiple over the years, I just like grew to love the the small lightweight type of car, double wishbone, very easy to work on and maintain, you know what I mean? And then once I realized what other people were already doing with them, like tracking them and stuff, kind of opened my eyes into like what their capabilities were. And that's kind of when I started to, especially back in like the forum days, and I'd see what people were doing, like racing them. I'm like, wow, like people actually race these things around the track, and then like play like Gran Turismo and stuff like that. And it's just like led me down a whole pathway. And I don't I really don't know what the appeal is to like other people, but it's just, they are kind of a craze, and they've had such a cult following for such a long time. And like these older Hondas are getting like hard to find in like decent condition. So when you find one and you want to build it to a track car, you're almost like stuck restoring the entire thing, like every nut and bolt. But people will do that, and it's just, there's no shortage of love and like fanaticism for these chassis, but they've obviously proven themselves to be like very capable still, even up against like newer chassis. You just got to do a little bit more to get them there, I think.
What have you broken on your car? Because we're also talking with Andy about working on the S2000. Once you start tracking cars like this, you start finding the limits and where the points are. Your K24 up, so maybe the engine isn't necessarily the thing that you're worried about all the time. Are there things on your car that you've had to kind of beef up or replace as you hammer curbs and get after it?
Yeah, I mean, with the size wheel and like the offset that I have to run to fit that tire and wheel size, like wheel bearings kind of take a hit. I usually replace them like once a season, front and rear. You kind of just have to be on top of them at all times. The drive shafts with the swap are kind of a problem because of the angles that they sit at, because the swap is non-native to the chassis. The axles kind of have a good angle up and a little bit back, and they're just kind of weird, and it puts a lot of heat into the like outer CV joints. So me, myself and Mario both have been struggling with drive shaft issues. I kind of thought I had it cured, and then I lost one, and then this next one I put in just gave me issues all through Lime Rock. And now I just ordered like 4 different axles to try some like different ones to see if I can find a cure. The rear trailing arms, they're like kind of like stamped sheet metal, and they're pretty thin. So we have to like, reinforce them, and they still wind up like cracking and tearing from like just fatigue from 30-year-old parts. We weld bracing and gussets to them. Like if you've ever seen what Catila's done to his trailing arms, like it gets pretty extensive with the amount of grip that we're generating, and especially like in the rear of these cars, they're grocery getters that were never meant to have big sway bars and a decent amount of grip back there. So it's otherwise though, I did lose an engine once, just one a rod bearing. So but otherwise the car's been pretty reliable. Like all last season I didn't have hardly any issues at all, like while other people were kind of struggling. And now this year I've had a few things bite me during events, but nothing like major. So I've been pretty lucky.
Gotcha. Looking at the points for the year so far, CMP second place, right behind Jeremy Bailey. That was a podium sprint event, and that Jeremy snuck one away there. But then only 8 points at Road Atlanta. I don't recall what happened to you there. Have you down in?
So nothing really happened. It was kind of a struggle between getting up to pace at a very high risk, high commitment track my first time there. Only having 2 dry sessions because of basically a full course caution during our second session. We lost basically a third of our dry track time. And then by the third session, once I felt comfortable to really start trying to push, it was just nonstop traffic and I couldn't find a gap. And I didn't do well enough of a job myself to like really manage that traffic. So it was mostly due to myself just not being mentally prepared enough and not managing the situation. So I was pretty frustrated, to be honest. Like I just more so with myself, but also at the same time, like a lot of people on track, I'm like, why is there so much traffic? Like, this is crazy. Like, and then looking back at the footage afterwards, I'm like, man, I could have done this, I could have done that, and to get a gap and get a lap in, so it's just, it all boiled down to me just not executing well enough.
Looking at the next couple of rounds, Mid-Ohio, that was a track record broken in a first place there, and then Lime Rock second place behind Pete Gramberg, but that was also front wheel drive track record. You guys went back and forth quite a bit at Lime Rock, and that was pretty fun to watch.
That was pretty intense. I tried real hard Saturday morning to kind of come back at him, because after he set that lap record the first session out, I was like, holy crap, like how am I going to find 7/10? Like that's insane at that track, no less, And then I don't know, I played the wrong game with the tire choice, because I was like, I'll run some scrubs for the first session and kind of get my feet underneath me. And then he went like full out balls to the wall with stickers first session, and it was definitely the best session for grip in the weekend, and he just like pulled one out, and it stuck for the rest of the weekend. And then I tried to put stickers on the next morning and go for it, and I basically overslowed one corner, and that was basically it. Like, you just, this class is so competitive, you can't afford to lose 2/10 in one corner. Like, that's it. It's just sudden death basically. So that was I was very I was happy with the lap time that I ran, but knowing kind of where the time was left on the table, I was also kind of frustrated with myself, like knowing that it was possible to get it, and I just kind of just left it and didn't have any chance after that Saturday morning session to really go for it again. So hats off to Pete. It is insane that he ran that lap time in the very first session of the weekend on, like, I don't know, lap 4 or 5. I was following behind him when he ran it, and I was like, man, he's gapping me. I wonder what he's running. And then I saw what I ran. I was like, oh, I broke my record from last year by a few tenths. And then, like, when I got out of the car and saw his lap time, I was like, oh, like, I'm screwed.
Well, Lime Rock was super fun to watch. There, that battle was caught pretty well on the live stream, which was see. And I think that's another thing to note also is podium sprint. It's been kind of a hot topic as of late, and internally and externally, about ways to improve it and how it's been so far. But take me through your perspective, because at Mid-Ohio that was a non-sprint event. So was Lime Rock, but what's your perspective on that, and how has it sort of changed time attack for you since you've started running it back in 2020?
I don't know. Maybe I'm kind of, I don't want to call myself like a purist, but I do really enjoy like the traditional format where it's like, fastest time wins, undisputed in the weekend. There's no chance for like, an upset in the last session of the weekend. But at the same time, like the first time I ran podium sprint, it was back in 2023 at Mid-Ohio, was like the most exciting thing that I had done up until that point, because like the nerves were just like ratcheted up so high, and then like for those 2 laps, like all eyes are basically on you, and that you have to throw it down in those 2 laps. Back when it was still 2 laps, I also enjoy that. I think that the 2 laps kind of in my opinion, like just going up for 3 laps and everybody's out at the same time kind of maybe waters it down a little bit. I understand why we do it that way now, you know what I mean? But I definitely enjoyed it when it was still like one driver at a time, 2 laps out. But that definitely, had created problems at certain times and with certain tracks. But I don't know. It's sometimes something with that traditional format. It's like you have to beat everybody, and if you miss like one of those fast morning sessions, those fast morning sessions almost become the podium sprint in a sense, because you know that's your best chance to go out and just throw down, and everybody else in your class is like mentally prepping and got stickers on to go out on that Saturday or Sunday morning session and literally give it everything they have. So it's like it's almost like a do or die scenario. But then it's like if you don't, I guess if you don't get it that, the first session of the weekend, you have possibly 2 more morning sessions, weather depending. So it becomes a whole game with that too. So I don't know. There's a little more, I don't know. I can see from spectator perspective and participation perspective, like the podium sprint is definitely super exciting. But to me, there's still something like special about just that traditional format to go out and just have all weekend to try and get something, but that there's really only a couple sessions that you really have a solid chance to do it. And there's always an upset in the podium sprint, which does kind of make it exciting. Like just this past weekend, like that was super exciting to watch. I obviously wasn't there, but I was geeking. I was driving home from work trying to watch the stream on my phone as I'm driving, and I got home and parked in the driveway like just as they were basically finishing their out laps, and I just sat in my car watching it on my phone. Like I had to see the results and then just saw like what happened, and I was just like, holy crap, I can't believe this is nuts. So yeah, it's like that aspect of it is super cool, Yeah,
and I bring up that point because Mario Moroni takes the lead going into to Laguna Seca. Now I believe Mario's planning on going out there, which will change the math here a little bit. Especially bringing a pointy-end car out to a place where there probably aren't a lot of pointy-end cars. Let's talk about your plans for the rest of the year. I imagine no Laguna, but is pit race on your calendar?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I love pit race. I feel like I have unfinished business there from last year, and it's not very far from me. It's maybe 4.5, 5 hours. So you have to go in there last year for the first time. It was like instantly one of my favorite tracks, like right up there with Mid-Ohio and Lime Rock. And I'm definitely really looking forward to going there and trying to, see what kind of lap times we can run. Because everybody is just like so sharp and pushing really hard right now. So there is no doubt that last year's record will just be soft compared to what we can pull out this year. So I'm just really excited to see like who can manage to do what and kind of how the points, fall at the end of the week. I was kind of doing a little bit of math myself after the scorecard was updated when I noticed earlier today, and I was like, man, I could either win this if Mario doesn't do all that well at Laguna, or I could wind up completely off the season podium and just easily one way or the other, just depending on how I finish and everybody else does. It's just so tight, and it could just go anyway. And it's definitely going to be a brawl.
I think that because you won the championship last year in Club TR, and I'm actually, for the people on the stream, I'm going to pull up 2024 pit race results, because I'm pretty sure that the margin of victory, it was basically whoever beat the other person last year between Peter. And margin of victory last year was 3/1000ths of a second. Here's the results for people watching. And that just is crazy to me. But I think you bring up a great point that with how many different drivers are in championship this year, maybe it won't be that tight as far as the time, but there are way more drivers in contention at the very end of this. I threw in 26 points for you to see what would happen. You'd have 95 points is all you could earn this year. Last year, you had 5 rounds of wins, 4 rounds that were nearly perfect. That led you with 103 points. 104 is all you can technically earn. So the fact that you could theoretically win with only 95 points goes to show how well spread out it is across those top 5. So this battle is just so fierce. How do you feel like it's going to play out with Mario at Laguna? I am curious about how you feel he'll do it.
I hope his car just like holds together for him, because I feel like his skill as a driver and kind of the fact that he is like, one of the pointy end guys, one of the regulars. He definitely has the the potential to just sweep the field out there, um, and take the record. Like he could come away with 26 points, like 100%. My cat literally just stumbled through a bowl of candy.
My cat is stumbling all over me.
But yeah, so I'm definitely cheering for Mario. Like Mario's a great friend of mine. You know, we've known each other for years now. So I'm rooting for him out there. Um, I kind of in my head, I think he has the potential to take the championship. I mean, he's definitely a like him and Pete and Stan, like any one of us could, you know, pretty much pull it out. Um, in my head, I really just kind of want to, if I could land on the podium for the season, I'd be happy this year. You know what I mean? Like it's so the competition somehow has gotten so tighter and everybody has leveled up. You know, everybody in the top like 10 has just risen, you know, pace wise and skill wise and car prep wise. Like this season, it's just every time you think that the lap times are fast, they just keep getting faster. So, you know, that's what I say. I'm really excited to see what we can do. I'm really excited to see what Mario does at Laguna because I definitely think he could break the class record and come home with the 26 points. So that'll set him up really good for pit race. At the point where you know he'll be 1 point away from my max potential. You know, the maximum amount of points I could earn for the whole season. He'll be like at like 94, I think, if he wins Laguna. So, and then all he has to do, I think, is come in like P2 or something like that at pit race to maybe either tie, depending on who winds up in the rest of the podium. It's just like all the scenarios are hard to like math out, you know, and it's just crazy. So, yeah, I'm really just trying to mentally prepare and go in and finish the season as strong as possible, and you know, hope for the best, but not expect to, you know, come away with it like it did last year. I feel like a lot of like my season last year was pretty I don't know, surprising to me that I was so successful, and a lot of luck and everything went my way. Like especially like the 2 wins earlier in the season last year were came from a lot of like misfortune of other drivers and breaks that just kind of went in my direction. And you know, it wasn't until like mid-season to the end where I really like felt like I deserved my place at the front of the field, you know. And then going into the last year, like the final event last year, it was a lot of stress. I was like, I can pull this off or I can lose it all. And this year going into the season, I kind of really didn't want to have that stress on my shoulders. I kind of want to just be a little bit more relaxed and just go out and, you know, drive as hard as I absolutely can, but not stress about results too much. So I'm having a great time. And yeah, I definitely just want to see Mario do well out there and then, you know, just give everybody hell at pit race and see how it shakes out.
The other thing to consider too, that just like Autobahn this year, compared to last year, pit race will have a podium sprint. So that's going to ratchet up the intensity. So that'll be probably one of the highest intensity moments on podium sprint we've ever had. So I'm looking forward to that. But you know, but before we start to wrap up here, Evan, I want to talk a little bit about the camaraderie that in Falken Club TR, because it seems like everyone is sort of rooting for each other. And I know at times, you know, the way that everyone is pushing each other with the rules and things, I'm sure that there's jokes traded around, but it seems like everyone really gets along well in Club TR. Take me inside the Club TR class chat for a second, and how, you know, how does it feel to have a category that supports each other so well, but is also as fierce, or maybe the fierce class in time?
Oh, it's awesome. Like you said, everybody there is friends. I don't think I've met every single person in the class, obviously, but you know, like the majority of the regulars, obviously all the top, like, you know, 5, 6, 7 of us, we're all like pretty tight. And there's no like, you know, legit like beef or animosity between any of us. Most of us are open book. You know, me and Pete get a little spicy in the group chat, just kind of like trash talking back and forth sometimes, but it's all out of fun and like it's all love, you know what I mean? So I get just as hyped when, you know, if I'm not at an event and I see one of them win, I'm like super hyped for them and everything. But then when we're at an event and we're on track, like there's nothing else I want to do but just beat them at their best, you know? So, but I think I don't really I don't think I'd be in the class still if it was more of like a toxic, like completely cutthroat environment. I think the camaraderie and the friendships that we all have made over the last, several years are really what kind of like keeps us there and draws new people in, and they see how much fun we're all having, and we all like, squat up and go for a track walk, after the track goes cold. And, it's just, you know, like me and Mario, obviously like two direct competitors, and we padded together all the time. And, you know, obviously like we've been friends, like just through Instagram and stuff, even before we even met, and competed against each other. So it's just like, I don't know, it's just like such a positive thing to, even if you like you get beat, you got beat by somebody who's like a killer and like performing at their best and is like one of your homies. So
It's been really fun to watch the camaraderie there, and just the level of competition is so thrilling. I cannot wait. I mean, Laguna Seca's coming up next week. I'm excited for that. But pit race, that last session, I think a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Evan, before we let you go, I want to ask the same question I ask everybody now on this show at the very tail end. There's one thing you could change about Grid Life, whether it's feedback or whether it's something that like to flip a switch and have it be different tomorrow. I'm curious what it would be. It could be about Time Attack. It could be about the tickets. It could be about the tracks. But if there's one thing you could change, what direction would you?
This is probably going to sound super petty, but me and Pete were just having this conversation earlier today. But it's literally get the freaking contingency payments out quicker so I can put them towards tires. That's the only thing that I can think of. Otherwise, I love it. Like, I mean, there's probably little like nitpicky things, as far as like, getting grid orders out soon enough and stuff like that. I mean, I don't care. We're all there to have a good time. I don't have any major gripes, to be honest with you. Obviously, a lot of people get upset about the rising costs and stuff like that, but that's like all across the board with any organization. Um, and I think the stream keeps getting better, and like all the work you do on the back end keeps getting better. And like, I don't have any complaints. I just wish I had unlimited money to keep doing it forever.
Yeah, me too, dude. But hey, I appreciate that. And again, I think as far as the the costs going up, I think everyone feels that's one of those things that like we all wish we could stop, right? All of our friends to come out with us every week. And Adam always says, like, if the tickets could be free, we would do that, right? So, it's great. But, Evan, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Super glad to have you on. Can't wait to see you at Pit Race. I'm sure you'll be rooting all your friends on in Club TR in Laguna Seca next week. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for having me on. Definitely can't wait to see you guys at Pit Race.
Cool. Thanks, Evan. Have a great night, and we'll see you soon.
You too.
Bye. All right. Well, that was Evan McLaren and Andy Smedegard that we had on. Both great representatives here in our paddock. Have been with us for quite some time in GLTC, Time Attack, and Drift paddock. And, of course, Evan, Falken Club TR. Again, interesting chat about podium sprint. I know that's been sort of a hot topic in the Discord as of late, and as of watching Autobahn. Finally, we're alone with Kyle again. Not for long, guys. It's been. I had a stream before this. I have a stream right now. I need to go to dinner. It's 8:44. I'm here for you. I've been on call at work since 9:50 a.m. So we're ripping. Yeah, Mark. I apologies the last couple of weeks. I have a little bit of a new Tuesday schedule that has us a little bit later than it was before. We intend to bring it back all the way through the rest of the for this. Then when we get to the off season, I think it'll be sort of a great platform to sort of have some more open chats with the team, and we'll chat about successes and relative failures of the year and what we can do. And I know Time Attack is a big focus of my discussion right now, mostly from the presentation side. Again, after having sort of basically a full season of this sort of different version of the podium sprint concept, I've got some feedback that I'm going to take back to our team, because the whole idea for the podium sprint is to present better. So we have to find sort of the middle ground between how it presents, how it runs. That's a big topic of conversation that I'm sure drivers will hear about before. Lots of really exciting things happening behind the scenes. There's so much going on right now I wish we could talk to you about, but trying to get geeked up. And I can tell you already 2026, from a conceptual standpoint, is well underway. though we're trying to get sorted our best here. It might be cutting out a little bit because my noise suppression filter might be a little strong on the bottom end. So when I stop talking, if it cuts out at the low end, I'll adjust that for next time. So thanks for that. I'll fix that for next time. But thanks everyone for joining us here on the GridLife Drivers Meeting. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't. We'll see you next Tuesday for plenty more of this right before we head off to Laguna Seca, and we'll see you next week. Thanks so much. We'll see you soon.